Thank you very much to the organizers for the opportunity to be here, for the opportunity to drink water from my country, almost, which talks about competitiveness, no? This place is where they make San Pellegrino. The road to get to this place, Aquapana, the one you have in front of you, is made in Italy, exported from Italy to Nashville, you know, while the Chinese are selling you Apple computers. Where is more value added? Are you so silly to buy water from San Pellegrino? The road to get here is a single-lane road. There's not even a highway. It's in the middle of the mountains. It's almost 300 kilometers from the port. You know, we get the water from there, put it in the ship, send it here, sell it to you, put it here. It's crazy. The world's crazy. But it's, you know, you prefer to drink this than a water from next door or from the tap water, which will be the same way. So competitiveness is very complex, and this is what I'm going to try to explain. We know how to deal. I mean, if things were also simple as the fixing the DNA of the cocoa, you know, that would be great. That would be great, because then, you know, it's a technical solution. But things are more complex. Even if we fix the DNA of the cocoa, I'm not sure those 6.5 million farmers will be better off. Because what it was not said, that, you know, and here working in the World Bank, this is one of the things that I'm concerned. There are 5 companies that buy all the cocoa in the world, which also happen to be in Zurich. Don't tell me why, you know. And these companies fix the price. So if we get a 10% increase in productivity in the cocoa, guess what's going to do that productivity increase? Ask to that about the automotive industry. They were the ones which started with lean production and productivity increases. Where were the savings when? You know, we're going to save 10%, and you as supplier, we're going to pay you 11% less. Okay, so complex issue, and this is what I want to try to address. You know, we in the bank now have taken this responsibility of not only tackling with poverty, which is what we have been trying to do in all these last years with more or less success. There is a lot of people have gotten out of poverty, but there's a new objective, which is the second one: foster income growth in the bottom 40%. Increasing the share prosperity, and this, you can see these names that you have in your agenda, that the World Bank has into agenda. They're all very influenced by the share value and the prosperity examples that Mike Porter has put on the ground. And this is much more complex, because you can eliminate poverty by giving the Bolsa Familia or some kind of subsidy to everybody, but you cannot create that 40% of the population is more productive and more prosperous unless they are competitive. So here is where all things come together. We need to do that. How are we tackling that in the bank? What's our role in the bank? Of course, we're focusing on the developing countries. Of course, we are trying to develop customized solutions to them. But it's very important to know what works and what doesn't work. And as Christian said, by now, we have been 20 years working with this. This is not anymore a new tool. Now is the moment of saying what works, what doesn't work. And it's complex, because, you know, these guys are competitive producing water. Who would have ever chosen water as the cluster of the future of this region? Okay? Or circus in Montreal. Will you have, the mayor here today, will he have chosen to invest in the circus industry? Well, maybe in Nashville you're not too far from that. You are in the entertainment industry. But in Montreal there was no reason. And today they are the leaders, world leaders in the circus industries and everything which is around it, which is a lot of auxiliary industries. Okay? So put that in your agenda. So this is complex. So what works, what doesn't work? The first lessons we're coming up is that this is not happening at the country level. And it's not even happening at the sector level. It's not that that industry is good, or that industry is bad, or that country is good, that country is bad. I am so tired of sending people to Singapore to see Singapore. It should be forbidden to go to Singapore and Korea, okay, and Israel. You know, it's like those examples that cannot be replicated. So forget it. No, but we keep going, and we want to be like the Singapore, like the Korea. So let me bring an example close to you. I'm going to talk about an example in your own country. And this is Harvard Business Review last year. Kodak. You heard about this company, haven't you? You know? This is the article that was probably because of the disastrous fallout of the Rochester optics of Kodak. Kodak was in the optics clusters in Rochester. Tell me, Bob Perot here from the optics cluster in Tucson, some of the most iconic names in the United States, Xerox. They invented the fax machine. It was one of the first cases written by Porter in 1999. At that time, in 1990, when that book was published, you were not worried about the Chinese taking over. You were worried about the Japanese taking over. You were worried about Japan and the Ministry of International Trade and Industry choosing. And the example of, yes, we invented fax, but they developed, they sold it, they grew it. Bausch & Lomb. You know Bausch & Lomb? Ray-Ban? You know who owns Bausch & Lomb now? Anybody?
Chinese?
The Italians from this place. It's another small place, a cluster of optics in Belluno, in north of Italy. It's in the middle of the mountains, the middle of the Dolomites. The largest city is 5,000 people. They bought Bausch & Lomb, the Ray-Ban division. And they own every glass that you own, they do it. From that place, they control the whole production. They have factories in China everywhere, no? So, again, what is this? What happened? What happened to this famous cluster? Because they were a cluster, weren't they? They had the Rochester Institute of Technology, one of the best ones. Already when in Arizona they were shooting each other, they were already developing research papers there. So what I try to do is say, is it the optics industry, is the Arizona, is the... No. I did a study for the OECD 5 years ago, and already you could see this is the number of patents per capita in Rochester versus Tucson. Something was happening in Tucson. Something was happening in Rochester. You could see the decline, And for me, what is happening is that they were both clusters. They were both in the same industry. They were both in the same country. So there must be something wrong that they were doing one another. And here I will conflict a little bit. And sorry, let me give you a good example of the result. Kodak went bankrupt. In Arizona, a company you probably never heard about, Ventana Diagnostics. Have you ever heard about Ventana Diagnostics? Never heard. Well, the guy sold it for $3 million, okay, to Roche Diagnostics, which Roche was a Swiss company, leader in Europe in diagnostics based using chemical methods to make diagnostics of tissue. Whereas these guys invented how to apply optical technologies and laser technologies to use to analyze that. Were in the optics clusters? Were these guys making optics? Were in the medical cluster? Where were they? The result is that there are two models in these clusters. And be careful with the assertion that Christian made that the private sector knows better than government. Yes, the private sector knows better than government when they know. When they don't know, they die. Governments, they don't die. That's the difference. We can have a government that... but the difference is that. Imagine we had the IT cluster in Route 128 created back in year 2000, back in year 1990 something. We'll have president, the guy from One Computers, remember? Remember? Digital, that was our cluster. Do you think that Bill Gates will have ever been invited to the meeting? Or Steve Jobs? No, they were in the garage. Okay, so be careful with private sector leading things, because most of the private sector there are mammoths that they will be going to extinction. How do you get the right private sector in the table? That's the question. And that's this new model. I think in Tucson they were able to do that because they built it around this College of Optical Sciences. I know you cannot see this picture, but that nebulous is what it is. You put the name ecosystem. It is an ecosystem. It is an ecosystem where, for example, this college has 1/3 of the faculty coming from industry, 1/3 of the faculty coming from other departments in the same university. So there are engineers and medical doctors and so working cross-functionally in the other part. Okay? They don't have any big venture capital firms, but the same scientists that make money selling these patents and these things, they put back the money in something called Desert Angels, and they put it back into the system. And they are the ones that take the risk. They have a fund to do what they did today with these fellows. The Industrial Affiliates Program is basically to pay to the students to go to conferences. That's what they do. They just fund the students to go to conferences. So these students are the center. And at the center of the research is every PhD student. A PhD student there is supposed to be ahead of its professors. So therefore, it's normal that a PhD student will change his director of thesis 2 or 3 times along his career because he's better than them. So how do you build these systems? How do we do that? Is these clusters? Well, this is the modern version of those Italian clusters that Professor Beccatini was telling us, years ago. This is the model. It's much more complex. It has not become... Before we needed some trade, some skills, and the example that some good friend of us, of Stradivarius, making in Cremona all these violins, that was kind of the tacit knowledge that was around the craft. Today is much more complex. How do we do this? This is what clusters need to bring us. And after 20 years, this is a report we did for the World Bank 2 years ago. It's a mix. We have as many good examples and as many bad examples. Okay? So we need to be careful. Now we don't have any more the excuse of saying, let's try. No, it has been tried. Now we know it works and it doesn't work. We have been trying through TCI and through other things to improve this quality of the people working here, to put all these lessons together, and it has not been easy until the Commission, the European Commission, 4 years ago, they decided to fund something which was called the European Cluster Excellence Initiative, the European Cluster Observatory, a series of tools which is, okay, now let's put together all this knowledge and then disseminate it. This was an effort that I was coordinating before I joined the World Bank, but you had here all the countries in Europe which have been trying these methodologies, putting together their all collective knowledge. Myself, I have worked in more than 200 cluster initiatives. So myself, all these other Danes and Austrians and Germans all together, we were able to put something which is like, what an MBA should know. Well, what somebody which is going to be working in economic development, trying to deal with these ecosystems should know. And we're still in the incipient, but clearly it is complex. We need to know about economics, we need to know about change management, we need to know about, organizational management. It's a whole new set of disciplines. The training core which has been put by the European Union now and which is being taught across Europe, with an independent foundation which forms people to do that. But this is like defining a new career, a new MBA. Every MBA is different, and every person that does an MBA when goes and runs a company will do it differently. But they all need to know accounting. They all need to know organizational behavior. They all need to know, few basic things. This is what we are here setting up. Not a cookie-cutter approach, but on the contrary, that people doesn't come and sell you your solutions, but you develop the skills to develop your localized solutions. Okay, it's like if running a company was, okay, we'll run the company like GE does. Well, GE may have been an excellent company, but you cannot just copy GE for everything. Another thing is having a master's, an MBA, where we'll give you the basic pillars you need in order to run a company. This is what we are at this stage now. And we in the World Bank are now thinking that at one point or another we need to stop just testing things and by expanding. This science of scale-up that we're saying, the science of delivery is very important because we know what needs to be done now. We know the ingredients. And it's just a matter of not deciding if it's good or not. This works. This works. And also we know it doesn't work, which is as important as well. And we have now the tools to roll out and to expand this at a larger scale. This is what we are trying to do. And I'm 1 minute ahead. Okay. So it is different. It is very difficult to do this in an environment where the more important economy in the world does not apply it. So think about this. It was invented here like the fax machine. Okay. It was invented in Boston, but it has been developed elsewhere. Because here, one of the fundamental ingredients that is missing is the role of public policy. And role of public policy is fundamental to understand and to prepare the terrain, and not only with free market. Remember, Adam Smith said, every time you put people from the same trade together, it is only to conspire against the public good and conspire against on prices. So this basic assumption that just leaving the private sector in the United States take care of this, well, if you are lucky, you have a very good private sector which is thinking really long term and not only in their quarterly earnings. and this is not what happened, according to what I saw a couple of years ago, then the private sector can lead. If you don't have that kind of private sector, you have to have a role of government. You know, and I know this is very difficult to be said in a political environment, but, you know, governments prepare the terrain for these things to happen. And governments, because it's as important the role of the, as you can see, the Tucson, Arizona. Tucson did that in contrast to Phoenix. So the state of Arizona does not like that policy they're doing in there. They didn't help them at all. Okay, so it's Tucson. It's not even the state of Arizona. So Tucson, the locality, there's a role for the states, there's a role for the federal government, there's a role for all of us trying to understand it. Thank you.